Hi, this is Amy with the Hag Reads, and I am not going to discuss a book that I read today, although I have been pretty reliably reading, on average, a book a day. And that's largely because of some YA and children's series that I'm reading through. I think I've said several times that I will not be able to sustain this level of reading for next year because I am changing the type of books that I'm reading, so next year will be much slower. What I am going to talk about today is a small book haul that I have been accumulating books probably for 3 months or so. I'm not able to acquire books very quickly, and I buy almost all of them used. And I'm going to maybe talk about, I've seen a couple of videos about used books. Hold on, I got to make a note. Versus pirating ebooks, which I would never do because I like to touch books, so I wouldn't go around looking for free ebooks. And enough of them are generally offered for free or on sale on a regular basis for what I read that that would never be something I need to do. But so I wanted to talk a little bit about some things that I learned that I didn't know by watching these videos, these discussion videos about library versus used books versus buying them new versus ebooks, and then the issue of the piracy of digital materials, specifically as it relates to the booktube community, would be through ebooks. And that will be a discussion about that, but also several other things, just a general vlog. But I had some thoughts, and I thought, might as well talk about it. So what I'm getting today, or what I'm doing today, is a small book haul of pagan books and pagan adjacent books. And these are books that are themed, I feel, that dovetail nicely with books that are specifically about pagan topics, specific pagan religions, or magic, and that sort of thing. Like I said, it takes me a while to accumulate books. I have bought a couple of new ones, but I am a big fan of used books, so I get a lot of my books used. I'm going to make a quick note. Hold on. I had a thought of something that I wanted to add in a different video. And if I don't write it down, away it goes, and there's a chance it may never come back. So yes, pagan books and pagan adjacent books is what I'm going to talk about today. But before I talk about that, I really want to kind of backtrack a little bit to when I was married. I had a very large library. So once upon a time, I had 5 or 6 big books. These are tall, but they're narrow. I had the full size, twice as wide as me, 2 feet taller than me, 5 to 7 shelves on each bookcase, plus 5 or 6 half-size bookcases, and then going up the stairs, and we had a pretty steep flight of stairs in the townhouse we lived in. We're at least halfway up the stairs were varying heights of stacks of books going up the stairs as well. I love books. I love owning books. I love books that I will read again. The type of book I want to own is a book I will read again, that I will reference in some way, that relates to an area that I'm studying in extensively. Like, I have some themes that I have kind of been pursuing for my whole life. And so I like to keep those around, and those little post-it flags weren't a thing, but I've always been marking books in some way. And it used to be folding down corners in books that I use for research, because slips of paper fall out, but a folded corner, and I would mark them in various ways so I would know, if I was just flipping through a book and I was looking for a particular theme, I would be able to code on the colored dot or the symbol and know that may be where the information I'm looking for. So I had this very extensive library, for a one person. These weren't my husband's books. They were books I largely came into the marriage with, and after I was married, continued to buy with my own money. It was only towards the very end that I bought some books that were from communal money, but that was because I was a stay-at-home mom, and all the money was communal money. And when I got divorced, I sold the entire library very quickly. If I had any sense, I would have stayed longer and sold the library more responsibly, and I would have made a lot more money. But I was so miserable at that point that I just wanted out. And I made a fair amount of money off the library, but as I like to say quite often, I miss those books far more than I miss my ex-husband. And I wish him well in life. I hope he's happy and that he's found things that are fulfilling to him, because that's what I've been trying to do for the past few years, and I think I'm finally successfully getting there, but it was a process, I will tell you. So I'm not specifically trying to recreate that library, although there are some books that I just feel are staples for a pagan library. Like, you should have this book, at least for reference, if you're interested in particular aspects of spirituality or a particular path, that it's just a good idea to have access to that. And by and large, outside of historical materials, most public libraries don't have what you want, and you can't check it out long enough. And there's a high rate of theft on pagan books by, I've been told by libraries this is largely teens, because they can't buy them. They can't get their parents' permission to buy them. So, generally, if they're stolen from the public library, and I've been told this at a couple of libraries, they don't buy them anymore because it's an ongoing issue. So, by and large, you can find some very general materials there, or specific historical stuff. And if you went to a university library, of course, you would have access to a wide variety of religious readings of all flavors, not specifically how to practice a path, but more historically related stuff. And I think that is important if you're going to be in a path long term and you want more than what's available superficially through, what's considered modern paths. One of the things that, I have always recommended to people coming to a pagan path is, first of all, why are you here? What are you hoping to get out of this? Because that does color the recommendations you're going to get for where you should go for more information, what, type of groups you might be able to, have access to for socializing and for furthering your path and that sort of thing. But one of the biggest things I recommend is to read. If you think you're interested in... Hold on, please. Okay, somebody was at the door. I'm not 100% where I was in talking about this, but I think I was talking about... if you're interested in some pagan-flavored religion, you think you might be interested in a Celtic path or a Norse path or something based in Greek mythology, go read the history of that place, go read the mythology of that place, and become familiar with the people, the culture, the geography, the history, and, the folklore and mythology. And a lot of people don't have any interest in this. What they really want is to practice magic. And there's nothing wrong with that, but like meditation, magic isn't tied to any one pagan religion. Magic is a practice separate in and of itself, which can be used in a pagan spiritual path, in conjunction with your spirituality or your religion, but it's not dependent on any one religion. So in that case, then that's a whole different thing you should be looking at. Then you maybe don't need to know the history of a specific place or people or the mythology or anything like that. Then what you're looking at is probably herbalism and color symbolism and sigils and stuff like that, which is kind of independent of. That's what I like to call the pagan adjacent. It's related, but it's not specifically tied to a pagan religion, an individual pagan religion, or even multiples of them. It kind of stands on its own. So, I had that library, and I still look back longingly on my books. But I've reached a point where I don't have a ton of money, but I've reached a point where I am once again feeling a renewed interest in pursuing my spirituality, which I haven't felt a pull towards for a long time. I think I've talked about in a couple of previous videos, when I got divorced, I wasn't devastated by the end of my marriage. I was devastated by some of the things that were said and done at the end of it. I'm not sad that it's over, and I don't think my ex is sad that it's over. I think at the end, we were making each other pretty miserable, and I think we're both happier separately. But getting over the things he said, the things his family said, the things that, he almost immediately acquired a girlfriend, and he tried to use her as a mouthpiece to denigrate me, and I don't do that. We had a relationship, and we should have had an ongoing relationship of some sort, because we were supposed to be co-parenting, and instead it became this petty blame game on his part, and it was really hard to move past that for me. And it's only, all this time later that I'm finally coming back to knitting and reading and spirituality. I probably should not have let a couple of those go, because at a time when I really needed to hold on to something, I let everything go, and it really was kind of drifting in a void, without an anchor or a root that gave me some sort of sense of inner well-being. And so starting to acquire pagan books again, and starting to renew my spirituality has been like knitting. It's been a wonderful experience to become reacquainted with it. And I do have some relearning to do, scrambled brains, heart attack. So I've lost some things, and it has been long enough that, the nuances of what I was doing just aren't there anymore. And so starting to reacquire these books has been a joy for me. Like visiting old friends and finding new friends, and finding the ways in which the pagan community has changed. Because there's a lot, YouTube, when I was originally practicing pagan, YouTube wasn't around. There were, things like cyber covens and spiritual groups meeting online, and meetups was a new thing around the time that I was kind of going out of, or reaching the end of my active pagan practice. And so there's a lot more ways to access groups of people, individuals, and I see that even on YouTube there's a booktube, there's kind of a witch tube or a pagan tube where you can find content on almost anything, and it's a matter of weeding through, what's good and what's bad. And luckily enough, I do know enough to kind of pick out the gems and kind of push the rest of it aside and not get involved in the drama that I have seen on some of the channels. And unfortunately, that just kind of proliferates on YouTube in general. It's not specifically witchy or pagan or even bookish, where people can be petty, mean, and rude. I see it less on BookTube than anywhere else. But I'm not a young person, and I don't want to feed the drama llama, so I've really worked hard to weed through and find content that I like. I don't know if I'll ever be part of a group again, but it's good to get back to something that really fed me emotionally and spiritually, that I had let go of for so long. It was a nice welcome home. So on to the books that I have acquired in the last couple of months, and which I haven't read yet because I'm trying to get together groupings of books so I can read on a theme for 3 or 4 or 6 or 7 books, because I think that's the way you get the best well-rounded knowledge, is not to just buy a book on a subject because it has a good star rating or even really good reviews, is to read a number of books on the subject, because then I think you have a better opportunity of weeding out what's the really good information and what's kind of maybe specific to, you know, a personal gnosis, I guess, that may or may not apply to you, or that may even be disinformation or misinformation. So I think it's better to, rather than read the ultimate guide to whatever it is, to pick or select books that are either recommended or which have really good reviews. And I don't mean just look at how many stars it got. Go and read the reviews and see what people really had to say about it. These aren't books that you can really be spoiled on, because they're about doing certain things or acquiring certain information to be used in a spiritual path, or to create magic of some kind, or to, you know, some pagan adjacent topics, to gain knowledge about specific aspects of metaphysics or things like that. So the first book that I got, the first 2 are just kind of refreshers, and a highly recommended concept for people new to paganism, or just for human beings in general. The first one is Becoming a Critical Thinker, a User-Friendly Guide, the 3rd edition by Sherry Diestler. I think that whatever kind of religion you're interested in, you should go to it as a critical thinker. And it's just a good idea to be a critical thinker in life in general. So this is kind of a refresher for me. And I have my eye on a couple of other books, but I only have 2 right now, and I am going to start reading them in October. The second one is Asking the Right Questions, A Guide to Critical Thinking. This is the 7th edition by M. Neil Browne and Stuart M. Keeley. And this is a thinner book, but it came highly recommended by a friend of mine. And these are, for me, refreshers and maybe to combat a little bit of the scrambled brains I have from when I was having health issues. You know, I kind of, when I had my heart attacks, my brains kind of got scrambled a little bit. I lost some knowledge. I have trouble connecting with memories and with concepts some of the time. It's not as bad as it was, but there are some gaps to fill in, or maybe just a refresher to kind of kickstart, if I can, things I used to know, but maybe don't think about quite as much, or don't access quite as readily as I once did. So I think that in life, but particularly in paganism, and in religion in general, there's nothing wrong with religion at all, of any type. I'm not saying that paganism is better than Christianity or Muslim, you know, or Islam or Judaism. But there's a potential in all religion for you to be sold a package, and you're not really expected to think about what you're being sold. So to make sure that you're with people who are safe, with practices and information that is safe, it's a good idea to be a critical thinker. But that also applies to life. The third book, I have some of these that are Kindles, so let's see here. This one's, to show you a picture of it, I have to. Still trying to get the ups and downs of my son's Kindle. So, the third book is Chakras, A Complete Guide to Chakra Healing by Christine Marie Carr. When I was originally practicing, I never really thought much about chakras, but in more recent times, it just is a topic that interests me. So I got this book digitally, and it's very short, so I don't think I'm going to get a whole lot out of it. I thought it might be a good, like, kind of intro. And then through paperback swap, I also got Your Aura, Your Chakras, and The Owner's Manual by Carla McLaren. And I flipped through it. It's the spine's not broken. It doesn't look like whoever owned it read it, and there's not a remainder mark anywhere on it, which is, most of the books that come through paperback swap or that you get from used bookstores do have that remainder mark on them. Fifth book, I have an interest in tarot. I use it introspectively, I'm not a psychic. I don't claim to be a psychic, but I do like tarot cards for introspective work and for looking at the broader themes in life. I think shuffling the cards and drawing a card or doing a 3-card reading can give you a place to start with thinking about what's going on in your life and what's going on within yourself. I have just found it to be a very useful tool. But somebody that I have seen online, let's see which tab is this, has done a number of things with tarot that I've never thought of. And I have talked about tarot scopes on here before. Arwen Lynch is, she does tarot readings. She has a YouTube channel. She does this thing called tarot scopes, which are kind of like horoscopes, but she does an oracle card and a 3-card reading for the different signs. And it used to be free, but now it's on Patreon. And, I went ahead and I am donating to her Patreon because I really have enjoyed having access to that. It's another way to think about life, and it's something that I would have never thought about applying astrology to tarot, although they are, pagan adjacent topics. But then she wrote a book, and I guess she taught, it was like a mini webinar before, but it's called Mapping the Hero's Journey with Tarot. 33 days to finish your book, and it's using tarot cards, let me hold this up here, to gain insight into your characters, to maybe clarify plot points. It's just an interesting tool to, to add to your writing inventory if you're a writer and you're familiar with tarot or you're maybe interested in it. Something that I had never thought before. And she has a number of videos on her YouTube channel where she interviews authors and who are writing a book, and they go through some of the techniques in this book, and so those were very interesting to watch. And I thought, I'm not doing NaNoWriMo this year. I'm kind of taking a year off because I have participated for the last 3 or 4 years, and in November I just don't want to do it this year. But I am coming up on a time when I want to do some more writing, and I thought this was just an interesting technique. I don't know if I'll use it exclusively, but I will definitely use it as part of my outlining, I think, and maybe when I'm feeling stuck on things. It was just really fun to watch these videos and see. For me, this is a very novel use of tarot that I would have never thought of on my own, so I am charmed by it. And I would definitely recommend it if if you're open to using tarot cards. I think it would be such a fun way to work through, getting to know your characters, maybe hashing out why certain things in the plot are happening, where a specific plot point might be going if you're stuck. I just really think it's a charming and fun way to, a tool to use for writing if you are are not put off by the tarot at all. The next book that I got, and I want to get a physical copy of this, but right now what I have is a digital copy. It's the Complete Book of Numerology by David A. Phillips, and he's a PhD, and I don't, so, and when I originally got into paganism, numerology was one of the first things I encountered, and I know a lot of people think about it kind of like they think about horoscopes. It's very generalized information. But if you're doing introspective work, I think that this can be a useful tool to broaden the things you are thinking about yourself. So I got that book, and then I purchased the Numerology Guidebook, Uncover Your Destiny and the Blueprint of Your Life by Michelle Buchanan. Some of it's a nostalgic feel for me. I was kind of into it when I was in my early 20s, and then I never really used it again, but I remember doing this for myself and doing it for others, and so I have started the digital book, and I'm getting such a kick out of it, and it's just been fun to re-explore myself using this as a tool. And so a lot of these so far are pagan adjacent. The next book I want to talk about is oh, I don't know what that says. Oh, okay, here we go. So I think everybody who probably has a pagan library has this book. It's Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. And way back in the day, I used this to explore herbs and spices and stuff and things of that nature. You know, I would learn to cook with an herb or a spice, and then I would kind of look it up in here and see what the magical associations were and the various things that you could do with them as a part of magic. But I have kind of, for a long time, considered myself a kitchen witch, so I like to incorporate into my cooking and my food positive energy, and this book was really helpful in kind of finding out what certain herbs and spices could be used to focus on to infuse positivity and, you know, health into cooking and being in the kitchen. And the final book that I want to talk about, I totally lucked into this. It's been on my paperback swap wish list for a long time, and this book is almost never on sale. But I managed to get what looks like a pristine copy of Triumph of the Moon by Ronald Hutton, which I have actually never read. But I'm very excited about this. He's a really good author. He has several books out. And so I'm very excited about that book. Those are all the books that I purchased or got. Well, I purchased them in one way or another, whether I got them from Paperback Swap, a used bookstore, or directly from Amazon as a full-price book. But I'm really enjoying this, getting reacquainted and kind of the nostalgia that comes with actively starting to rebuild my library and to open back up into my own spirituality. So if you have watched to the end, thank you. I know that a lot of people will not maybe agree with my personal spiritual path, but live and let live, I say. I don't judge you for if you have a different path or if you are atheist or agnostic. You know, whatever works for you, whatever feeds your soul, whatever keeps you sane, I think that's appropriate for you, and this is what's appropriate for me. And definitely, if you don't like what I'm saying, these videos are all going to be labeled, so never feel like I've duped you into watching something that you feel is wrong. So that's all I have for today. I will be back again soon with talking about books that I've read, and I have a library haul that I want to talk about in a couple of days. I have one more book I'm waiting to get. No, I have 3 more books I'm waiting to come in, but I don't know how long they're going to take, so I may just do it in a couple of days if they haven't come in by then. Happy whatever time of day it is for you. I hope you're having a wonderful week. And I will be back next time. Bye.